So it was kind of communication. People used to communicate differently. People used to communicate through letter writing. When we looked at letter writing, it was a big means of communication that at a certain time during, I think, 1945, is it World War II, around there, letter writing was banned because that is what people used to do, just as you have right now people mobilizing to go for strikes. People used to do a lot of letter writing, and when they are mobilizing, maybe people to go out, go for war. When you look at the African continents, when they were telling people, you know what, you have to fight for your freedom, you have to fight for your rights, people used to write letters. So letters were a means of communication that people used. Even up to now, though you guys are discarding it, but letters, I think letters are the only official documents that are still used in offices. If you give someone a call and you maybe made an appointment, you have to accompany it with letters. So it's a means of communication. Okay, of course, um, still it's fading out, but you can do that. I don't know if I can tell you a story about Romeo and Juliet. Their letter writing, it's a very, very good story about what happened. I think those who attended my stream, I told you that story. It was very, very interesting story when we're looking at communication, okay, and Romeo and Juliet. Then, of course, we kept on going. Last year, I think in Form 4 or Form 3, we looked at how the media has also evolved, and we looked at how now we introduced the phones and how phones came in and they are trying to replace the letter writing. Of course, we have gone through different modes or models or versions of phones. Right now, I don't know which one is the current one. You guys might be knowing the most current phone. But I also came to know that actually you guys brag around, but you don't know. How can you fail to know these things? Okay, so basically communication. So we looked at that. How were people communicating? Then it is also key for you to know, I don't know if your teacher has told you, that we also communicate differently. Apart from verbal communication, where I mention something with my mouth, there is also nonverbal communication. You're supposed to know that. Nonverbal communication cuts across things such as body expression. How do I express myself? How is my facial expression? Okay, I can easily tell that this person here hates me or loves me through the way the person's face is appearing. Your dress code also tells us more about you. There are some of you who do not want to tuck in. Even the day you guys were leaving school, I had to quarrel with some boy, okay, who had not tucked in. I told him, you sir, wait until you step your mother's or your father's car. Then you can remove I think that guy, he was a Form 5. Then you can remove your shirt. But if you're still in school here, make sure you've tucked in. So the way you dress tells us more about you. It also communicates who you are. Tells us whether you're a stubborn kid, stubborn student, or you're an intelligent student or wiseacre. So the way you dress, mhm, the way you comb your hair tells us more about you. Some of you don't want to comb your hair. Then you have flies all over your your head. Okay. And so on and so forth. So communication, we have verbal and non-verbal kinds of communication. You are supposed to know that as a student. Okay, because it contributes. And all those things, of course, tell us more about you. The way you behave, the way you dress, the way you act, the way you speak, tell us more about who you are. So it communicates. Whatever you do, communicate. So communication is not just us looking at the media, okay, but we are supposed to know the genesis of communication right from the creation story. Okay, when God created the world, how did He create? He spoke, He communicated whatever He wanted to create. Okay, even when He was creating man, He communicated. When He was creating the sun, He communicated. He spoke. So basically, communication is a wide thing. I think, started by testing you on, I think in our midterm or something, we started by POT or something, we started by testing you on communication. Then I think end of term, they looked at, I don't remember, but I think I have the paper, looked at how these other media. I think so. I actually been doing a lot of things, so I can't remember what we said for you guys. But that is that. Now, we now went to the media. How are you supposed to use the different channels to communicate? You look at the internet, how do you use the advantages and disadvantages of the internet? You look at the phones, the advantages and disadvantages of phones. You look at social media, advantages and disadvantages of social media when it comes to marketing, comes to basically communication. Okay, so you are supposed to know that. Now, as I told you earlier, that I actually got shocked to know that some of you don't know the importance of some of these things. Actually, you even don't know some of these social media handles, social media, do they call them handles? I don't know. Okay, like Instagram, WhatsApp. I think some of you just have only WhatsApp. You don't know how Instagram works. You don't know how TikTok works. You don't know how Twitter or X works and all those other, not everyone, but some of you, I dealt with students. So they told me, Master, for me, I don't know those things. And I was shocked. Okay, because I knew that your generation is a generation where everyone knows these things. But anyway, learning is a process and learning never ends. And there is always a beginning for everything. There's always that first day for your learning. All right. So we went to that, the different channels. You're supposed to know what is the importance of a phone. You know, I have issues with our education system in Uganda or in Africa. But of course, being a GP teacher, I know why these guys decided to make our education system like that. But when you look at in juxtaposition and look at the education system elsewhere, for example, Japan, China, Middle East, and even the US, for us here in Uganda or in Africa, we spend about 15, 20 years at school. So you have 3 years of kindergarten and all those things. Then you have 7 years of primary, and then you have plus 10, and you have 4 years of O level, 14, and you have 5 years, 2 years of HSC, 8, then you go to so many. Is it 12 or whatever? Then you go to campus. By the time you're coming out at 23 or 22, somebody in the US is already a professor. For us, we are still studying. You don't even know. And you go to campus and you don't know what you're going to become. That's the most unfortunate bit. But when you look at these kindergartens elsewhere, for them, instead of them watching what we watch here at baby class, you have a screen for those affluent schools. You have a screen that keeps displaying Baba Black Sheep, Have You Any Wool, and all those other things there. I was arguing with a certain teacher, and he's like, no, those songs help, they help, I think, rhythm, rhymes and rhythm, and they like, does that bring food on my table? Then for them, they will dismantle phones and put in front there, dismantle radios and put in front. So kids, instead of watching Baba Black Sheep, they are busy assembling those things in nursery. By the time somebody is 15 years, the person is already working in a certain industry. Rasi at 15, you don't know what, actually at 23, you don't know what you're going to do. You come out as a lawyer, but you can't practice law. You have to go through LDC. Anyway, so that is that. But communication, that is how you have to know the background, right? So this term, so we looked at all those things, phones, radios, TVs, you have the internet, we said different forms. You have the internet, you have the mass media, which involves TV, radio, Then you have the print media. You're supposed to know that print media, which has the magazines, the newspapers, your booklets that you have at school, and all those other things. That is print. As long as something is printed, okay, it communicates. Then you have, so we have the internet, you have, okay, you have mass media, and then you have the print, then you have the next one there is the social media, where we looked at all those other forms. Okay, so you just need to know the background of that. Now, we go to what brought us, because I'm sure the teacher is about to come in, and I don't want him to find us on the way. I want him to find when we have, in case you have a question, you can go to the chat room and send. Okay, so we have our essay writing. This is a challenge. Ladies and gentlemen, essay writing is always a challenge to many, many students. I don't know why. Let's see my screen here. Okay, essay writing. Here, there are certain things, as I told you, we expect you to, there are certain things that we expect to see in your essay. Now, a good essay must have an introduction. I didn't see this in most of your work. A good essay must have an introduction. That's number one. An introduction always gives us a highlight of what you are going to talk about. An introduction it creates an impression to the reader, or it creates an impression to the examiner that this person knows what he is handling. Introduction, let me give you analogy. It's just like me getting interested in a certain girl, very, very beautiful girl. Then I go and appear. It's my first time to go reach out to that girl, and the way I appear, I am shabbily dressed. I cannot express myself properly. I even don't keep time. My communication is lacking and all those things. Do you think the person will get interested in me? No. Whatever I'll mention will not be of interest to that person. So an introduction plays a good, very, very good role in my impressing that person that I want to impress. Okay, so in case I want to impress that girl or that lady, what do I do? If I cannot afford good clothes, I go and borrow from some friend of mine. I make sure I get good shoes, I get good shirt, I get a good cologne. So that first impression when someone sees me, she's like, wow, this guy is a dude. He's the most handsome guy around. So first impression is the introduction. How do you introduce yourself? There is there are some students some years back who went to a certain school around Masaka Road, a very prominent school. And they entered in the head teacher's office. So they wanted a vacancy in that school. But when they entered, the head teacher also welcomed them. They even did not knock. They just went in. Then they decided to sit on the chairs. That is in the headmaster's office. Then the teacher asked them, what's the problem? They said, sir, excuse us, sir, we've come here to ask for a vacancy. The teacher asked which class? They mentioned the class. Then the teacher said, okay, first of all, I'm not going to give you the vacancy because you have failed the first interview. One, you entered my office without knocking. Two, when you entered, you did not greet me. Three, when you entered, you just sat on my chairs without my permission. So first time, the first impression shows that these kids or these students are unruly. Okay, badly behaved. The head teacher could not risk giving them a vacancy because they would spoil the other tomatoes inside the school. Okay, so introduction matters. Now, what do we look for in an introduction? You are going to be given a question, or you were given a question, you will be given a question, and in that question, we have what we call the key terms. The key terms. For example, you might be given a question on corruption. You might be given a question on you know, maybe insurgencies or wars in Africa. You might be given a question on any topic. Okay. Now it is your role as a student to identify the keywords. If the keywords are two or more than one, you have keywords. For example, they can say, to what extent has corruption led to abject poverty in Uganda? That could be the question. To what extent has, I don't know if I have that question. To what extent has poverty led to abject poverty? To what extent has corruption led to abject poverty in Uganda? So we have two key terms there. We have corruption, then we have abject poverty. Ladies and gentlemen, you are supposed to introduce those two. Now, you are supposed to, in a paragraph, introduce corruption. In one paragraph, introduce corruption. As you are introducing corruption, you are supposed to identify the different forms of corruption. Identify So you tell us what corruption is. What corruption is. Identify the different forms or kinds of corruption in that one paragraph. Mention, ladies and gentlemen, in that one paragraph, mention the individuals that have been implicated. Individuals that have ever been implicated on corruption in Uganda. Then, ladies and gentlemen, this is very, very, very important. Statistics. Give us the statistics of corruption in Uganda. What is the percentage? It can be in terms of percentage. You can tell us maybe it is at 65% now. You are supposed to read newspapers. That's the challenge. When you go to the library, what do you read? Read newspapers, have a notebook, have a paper when you go to the library. Ladies and gentlemen, that is what we are going to ask you. We are going to ask you what happens in the newspapers. Go with a paper and a pen in the library. Write. So give us the statistics. Is it 85? Is it 60? Is it what? Mention in terms of percentage. If it is in terms of figures, still that is statistics. Give us the figures. Tell us that maybe 130 whichever thousand people in Uganda are affected by corruption. Mention. We want to see figures in your introduction. That's why you failed your paper. So mention. Of course, we were testing you on social media. Now, give us statistics on social media about that. What's the percentage of people using social media or phones in Uganda? Mention such things. Okay, so it is very, very key. Identify what corruption is. Any form of dishonest behavior is corruption. That is an introduction. That is what corruption is. Any form of dishonest behavior. Dishonest behavior lies from cuts across, lying. Those of you who like lying a lot, you lie. Tell this girl how much you love her, this boy how much you love, and then you don't. Okay, that is corruption. You're corrupt. You're in class and you are sleeping. Actually, right now, some of you have, let me see, how many? Five? Yeah? 17. But you'll find that, okay, 17 minus me and, okay, we're about 15 people studying. But you'll find that among the 15, there are only 10 people who are attentive. The 5 are doing other things. That is corruption. You are corrupt. Okay, so any form of dishonest behavior, taking that 100 shillings from mommy's table without her permission, 1,000, okay, entering their bedroom without permission, that is corruption. Now, any form of dishonest behavior. Now, we are looking at national. Now, you go on looking at things like embezzlement. Now, here, I talked about identify the different forms of corruption. Embezzlement, you are supposed to know. Now, in your introduction, of course, you mentioned them briefly. Embezzlement, then you tell us bribery, nepotism, all those kinds of dishonest behavior, okay, in your introduction. So make sure you do that. Then mention in your introduction, highlight a few people who have been implicated. I have a challenge with teaching some of you that maybe you yourselves, some of you run organizations, you're corrupt. Hmm? And you fear putting yourself or your neighbor's dad, your neighbor's father, okay, or mother. Now, mention some of them. Mention those people that have been implicated that we also saw on media. Mention them. Don't mention someone at your neighborhood and yet we do not know that person. So mention them. Of recent, we had people like Agnes Nandutu. You don't know, she might be a relative to you people. Okay, who was in charge of Karamoja, minister in charge of Karamoja, and she was supposed to make sure that this place develops. Okay, it's alleged that they gave the iron sheets. They went to the prime minister's office and stole those iron sheets that were meant to be given to the locals in Karamoja. Now that is corruption. Okay, but in our introduction, just mention names like those ones there. You have a lot of them. If you don't know them, contact me when the term starts. I'll give you a list. In my class, I always give them lists of those guys, lists of government agencies so that they know. So you can do that. It will help you. All right. So statistics, very important. If at all you're talking about Uganda, tell us the position of Uganda among the most corrupt countries in Africa or in the world. That data is available. So make sure you do that. Statistics. Let me tell you, if I see this in your work, I know that down here, you know what you're writing. But if I don't see this, then it means you do not know what you're writing. So that's the first paragraph. Our question was, what extent has corruption led to abject poverty? Then I go to abject poverty. I am supposed to define what abject poverty is. Of course, abject poverty means a state where you cannot afford even the basic needs like a matchstick, a matchbox. For your own information, there are people who cannot afford a matchbox. There are people who live without food. They only take water at the end of the day, and that is their meal. That is what we call abject poverty. Don't be deceived by with the food that you throw away at the end of the day. There are people who cannot afford what you have. Okay? Now, the reason as to why those people, even the poor person will call that person poor. The reason as to why they are poor like that is because we have stolen. We have robbed each and everything from them. Actually, when I look at Uganda, Uganda is very, very rich. I always don't have time when I'm discussing GP. Uganda is very rich. We are endowed with everything, right from the good sun. If you can sit down and do a project, you can benefit a lot from the sun. Unfortunately, some of you, I don't know which projects you made even last. Of course, I monitored some of you and I laughed at your projects. Yeah? But when you look at, we have so many things that you can do and you get money. But the challenge is whatever you try to start up, because of corruption, even if I go to the rubbish pit and try to pick something from there and go and sell, there is someone who is going to come and tax what I am picking from the rubbish pit. That is how corrupt Uganda is. So it has led to abject poverty. When you're looking at poverty now, you're of course supposed to look at the different regions where people are so poor. Which regions are these where individuals are extremely poor, that even a poor person calls them poor? Mention those regions. So when I look at my introduction, I have looked at corruption, followed all this, looked at abject poverty, mentioned what abject poverty is, and given examples of regions and people and the like. I do not think these can fall in 2 lines or 3 lines or 4 lines. No, that is the mistake that you make. Most of us write an introduction of only 3 lines and you're like, okay, I've written my introduction. I am quarreling. I saw this in your end of term. And a good introduction should be between 6 to 8 lines. 6 to 8 lines. That is an introduction, having all the things here. The moment you do this, I will know that, yes, this person knows how to do. Right? So the person who told me, master, for me, I failed English with a credit 3. And that is why GP, the person got a 45% in GP, 45%, and you're bragging that you're doing PEM. Jesus Christ of Nazareth. How can you even get 45%? Okay, so basically, you do that. Introduce. A good introduction will give you a basis of your essay. If your introduction is not good, let me tell you, you will not write a good essay. You will not, definitely, because you don't know what you're going to write. Okay, maybe that one also takes me back to question approach. When you are given questions, we've been developing this. Our beginning of term will have more questions where you have to select one out of that. Okay? But how would you select a question? Some of us go to select questions that you're not familiar with. Select a question that you can give examples. Ladies and gentlemen, of course, I'm coming to that next. But if you get a question that you don't have examples, then you're going to mess up. Okay? All right, so this is our introduction. Our introduction goes to this, and it will carry 5 marks. Meaning, the first part of the question, the first part of the introduction, I'll give you 3 marks. Then the second part of the question, introduction, I'll give you 2 marks. Because when you look at this one is wider as compared to this. That's why it carries more marks. But if we were to look at most of you, what you did, out of 5, most of you are getting 3 out of 5. Why? The reason as to why you got out of 5, 3 is because you just defined the word corruption. If at all that one came, let me see. I think I said that in your BOT. Must have said that in your BOT, and no one attempted that. Okay? So, some of you just gave the introduction what corruption is, but you did not give us the individuals that were implicated. You didn't give us the different forms of corruption. You did not give statistics and the like, and that affected you. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, when you're given a question, identify the key words. Then afterwards, you are supposed to do what? Introduce. Now, number 2, this is one. The teacher, I think, is about to come. Number 2, you are now supposed to give us your essay. Now, a good essay, a good paragraph, the first paragraph that you put, first of all, just as I said, can you see this slide? I think so. Before you start writing your work, ladies and gentlemen, the reason as to why I got D1s last year is because I told students to do this. Plan. Plan your day. I have chosen this question, and I know I am attempting question 5 or question 4. Now, question 4 tells me to introduce. I will say, okay, in my plan, I'm going to introduce. I'm going to make an intro. What am I introducing? Corruption. What else am I introducing? This. Then briefly, I will say what corruption is in my plan. Then I'll say, okay, now I am supposed to identify to what extent has corruption led to abject poverty? Different forms of corruption, because now that is what has led to poverty. Embezzlement, bribery, nepotism, cronyism, and so on and so forth. There are very many of them that I might give you in case I get chance. So I write them here like this. Briefly, in my work plan, I write them here. They can be 20, they can be 5, they can be 10. I write them. So that after this, I should spend some time here. Spend some time planning. As a matter of fact, your paper is for 2 hours, 2 hours and 14 minutes. So I can say, okay, now let 2 hours and 40 minutes divide by 2. What is that? That is whichever, you guys are mathematicians. So I remove some time from there and okay, now like, let me use this time for planning. Now, after my planning like this, pay attention here. These answers came at random. I mentioned them at random. Okay, 1 hour and 20 minutes, very good. 1 hour and 20 minutes. That is about 80 minutes per paper. I mean, per number. So meaning, I can use 1 hour. That is 60 minutes doing one number. Then I leave the other 20 minutes or 40 minutes for planning and reading through my work. Very important. You have to read through your work. Oh. Okay, so after I have planned like this, these came at random. Now I will say, okay, I think this point here I have, remember first impression, what I said, first impression matters. I think this one here, I can explain it very well. Let this be my number 1 because I have very, very many examples I can explain. Then I think let this one be my number 2. Let this be my number 3, my number 4, number 5, like that. You go on identifying. The first point that you put here will determine whether you know what you're presenting or not. Let me tell you one thing. We mark a lot of papers. If it comes to your name, we mark thousands of papers. I am telling you this, thousands of papers. Actually, in a belt you're given, an individual might mark like over 300 papers per day. Per day. Now, if you have started your presentation with in a fumbling way, let me tell you, for me who is marking, because I will assume that what follows next is the same, it follows suit. But if you start your first paragraph in an impressive or impressing way, me who is marking, I will assume all the others are actually good. Because the first paragraph, of course, I'm going to tell you what I want. I will look through and see, okay, this guy has all these things. Yeah, mark, mark. Go to the second paragraph, mark, mark. I will think that even the next, that's what you have. So I will just, if at all headsets are allowed in a marking center, of course, in our staff room, they're allowed. But if in UNEB they are allowed, I would just pick my headsets, put them there, and mark, because I know you have written sense. But if your first paragraph is of 2 lines, first paragraph is of 3 lines, then I know this guy does not have content. I will mark, give you 2 out of 3, or 1 out of 3. Then mark the second one also, see the same thing. The next, I will assume it is like that. Remember, I'm making money in your name. Your teacher has trained you. I'm not going to train you during your name. Okay, so that now, what do we do? I am now starting my presentation. I have said, okay, number 1 is this. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this is what we expect. I expect you to mention, give a topic sentence. I saw that in with the people who came for consultation. Topic sentence has to appear on the first line, first sentence. There's a difference between first sentence and, okay, first line of the first sentence. Or first sentence of the first line. First sentence of the first line. Topic sentence. What does topic sentence mean? I am talking about embezzlement of government funds. That is my first topic sentence. Now, I am not going to present it like that. When you present it as embezzlement of government funds, I will underline. Now, that is my embezzlement. Embezzlement is my point. Now, let me tell you one thing. When I am presenting it here, I don't say embezzlement of government funds. I will underline. I have to create, maybe that's why the other guy said he failed English. I have to create a sentence. A sentence, remember, we said in senior 1 that a sentence must have the subject, verb, and object. So my sentence will be, one of the leading causes of corruption in Uganda is embezzlement of government funds. Or to begin with, the most pronounced, the most seen form of corruption in Uganda is embezzlement. Embezzlement is our object. Are we getting it? That is a complete sentence, but some of us were failing that. You just put embezzlement, then you go and explain. Bribery, and then you go and explain. No. Remember, this is English of HSC. We expect maturity. Okay, so my topic sentence. Then I am supposed to have a supporting sentence. Same line, supporting sentence. That's why I'm not putting them down here. Okay, and this sentence should be supported with examples, ladies and gentlemen, examples. So, topic sentence, the major cause of corruption in Uganda is embezzlement of government funds, full stop. I am supposed to support this. This is seen when government officials are given funds, for example, to construct roads, and they end up diverting that fund, the funds, or diverting that money for their personal gains. Now, that is an explanation, it's not an example. For their personal gains. I've mentioned that embezzlement, I've given a form of embezzlement where they are given money to construct roads, and instead of using that money to construct roads, somebody takes it for their personal gains. That is an explanation. Now, my example now comes Me identifying which road, ladies and gentlemen, I am supposed to mention which. I don't know whether you remember what we call adverbs. Adverbs of. This is, of course, we used to teach you the things, and maybe some people would not tell you why you're supposed to know adverbs. Adverbs of time, adverbs of place, adverbs of frequency, adverbs. This is where we need them. So, where? Katosi Road. I am mentioning the road. When? Mention the year. How? For who? So, my example, I mentioned the road. For example, mention the person who embezzled money on Katosi Road. It is there on news. Don't fear mentioning. Mention names. We want the names. Embezzlement. That's why people are dying. Last week, but one, we had somebody, a whole bus burning people in Katosi, around Katosi Road. Embezzlement. So, first tick, let me even use a red pen. And I've not yet completed that. I think now you see why you failed. First tick on the topic sentence. Second tick, supporting it with examples. Ladies and gentlemen, after this, I am supposed to conclude that sentence, conclude that paragraph, referring us back to the question. This has made development in Uganda hard and has kept most people poor. Because if such a road is dilapidated, then service delivery becomes slow, or people will not get what they need. That is a conclusion referring us back to the question in that paragraph. So what happens? I give you 0.3. Means you have earned all the 3 marks. How were you answering your essay? So, topic sentence, and the topic sentence must be supported with examples. Support it with explanations, identifying the different forms of corruption, the embezzlement, expound on the embezzlement, mention what embezzlement is about, that is stealing of government. So here, remember we are talking about corruption, and I've mentioned embezzlement. I will not mention it anywhere else. So if I am giving all examples of embezzlement, I can mention them. I mentioned Katosi Road. I can mention the medicine that was stolen by the Mukulas and all your uncles. Okay, I will not mention their names, but you know them. Eh? Was it Jim Muhwezi or somebody? Mentioned that the Global Fund and all the things there. Okay, so that. Conclude. Now, if you look at so I will give more than 2 examples on embezzlement, or more than 1 example on embezzlement. My paragraph will be about 5 lines, not 2 lines. I am supposed to explain so that everyone understands. 5 lines. As a matter of fact, if you have I don't know if I can get a paper here. Use your book. No, I won't use your book. Let me find a paper here. Okay, let's give an example of this paper here. You have this paper. We, teachers of GP, expect you to give at most 4 points on this page. At most 4. Some of you give 10 points on 1 page. Let me tell you, the mere fact that I look at your paper like this and it has 10 paragraphs, I can even throw it there and look for the person who has written well. 4 points on a page, meaning if I'm to count here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, one paragraph. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, one paragraph. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, another paragraph. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 4. I don't want to see. I'll come to your streams next time. Okay, so I go to the next. Now, ladies and gentlemen, your points are supposed to flow logically, chronologically. That from this, it leads us to this. From this, it leads us to this. Now, we have known that corruption is a general word to mean all the other forms. So don't tell us that corruption, then you go and tell us bribery. No, all the things lie under corruption. Of course, we should know that my topic sentence starts with an indented paragraph. Indented means I'm supposed to leave 2 centimeters away from, start 2 centimeters away from this margin. That's what I always tell my students, 2 centimeters away. So that it is clear that you have written a paragraph. Some of us don't know how to write paragraphs. From the margin, count 2 centimeters. Start from there, write, then come back to the margin, like that, proceed. When you're getting another paragraph, 2 centimeters, let your work be neat. Let a paragraph be a paragraph. Indented paragraph. Yeah. So I go to the next. Remember, I started with to begin with as I kickstart my presentation. You know what you did. Unfortunately, some of you did not look at this in O level, this section. You only did composition, narrative composition, you didn't do essay writing in O level, so you're having issues. But never mind, you'll get to this. So my next point will follow suit. I'll go and look at maybe bribery. Now, bribery is me buying position. Bribery is me now who wants a service. I want that job. I am driving that dilapidated car. I have knocked someone. I have gone to hospital. I want medication. Okay, so it's me who wants a service. So I go to a school. I want a vacancy. Me. I go to that school. I want a vacancy. Maybe I want to join senior 5, and the HM tells me, the place is full. Then I tell the HM, no, please, I can get you something. That is bribery. It is different from HM asking. That's not bribery. So bribery is me who wants a service. I give money to that person. They have caught me on a road and my car is DMC, dangerous mechanical condition, in that condition there. Then the police guy, the traffic guy stops me and tells me, you know what, Simama. Then I stop. As I'm getting out of the taxi, I go with like a 5K with my driving permit, or I go with like a 10K or whichever it is. Taxi drivers give normally 2K. Then I go to the guy and give him chai. Now, that is bribing. It is wrong. Now, we who have marked exams in schools, like some of you bribe us. Some of you bribe us. You find someone sending a paper, and inside that paper, there is a 10K inserted. Maybe I've gone far. Even minus the 10K. Somebody gives you a paper to mark and she has written something, or he has written something there. That is already bribing. Excuse me, sir, you know, I fell sick in the room, so please forgive me for not completing. You're bribing me. Whereas some people do what? Somebody will put in some money. It's wrong. I'll put your money aside and I take it to Sanyu Baby's home. Or I go to the streets and find someone in need and give. I can't eat bloody money. Right, so unless, no, I cannot eat, I can't. So what happens? That is a form of bribery. So you go, you want this service, then you're like, okay, you know, sir, I have come to hospital, but the line is too long. May you please attend to me? I'm very sick. Then you slip in some money. So the doctor will say, okay, no, never mind. Please come to my office. And then they treat you. No, it's wrong. Now, if we are to go in so you find that some people end up dying. You go to this hospital, you have a lot of money and you want special attention. Then there are others also who are there, but they cannot afford buying through their way through and end up dying. So you find that there are certain places, if we are to go back to our question, there are some places, some regions where the MPs, I'm sorry to mention this, some MPs somewhere may go to some offices and ask them to deliver the service to their region. Okay? That no, you see, for us here, I will give you some kitu kidogo, and the guys end up delivering. So you find some people are left out because they cannot afford, or their MPs are maybe naive, or I can use that word, or they are really trustworthy. They can't do such things. So you find that people around there will suffer. I'm not saying it's a good vice. It's not. It's never. So it is wrong. Let service delivery be equal. Do not buy your way through. So you find that such. So when you're explaining, you explain. You state the topic sentence, mention the topic sentence, that is bribery, explain the forms of bribery, examples of bribery, when, who has ever done that, when, where. Hey, adverbs, who, when, where. Those adverbs are very important. Okay, then conclude by telling us that this has greatly affected maybe, or this has promoted corruption in Uganda. It has made it hard for people to fight corruption. Mention them. If you're talking about these corrupt officials or corrupt taxi drivers, mention the areas where, maybe mention Massacre Road. You know, I was telling some people, I'm going to mention this. I told some people that, you know what, we need to get this experience. Some of you people have never sat in taxis. I don't know which examples you're going to give. You don't even know how a taxi looks like. Now I'm talking, you don't even know what happens. Now, where are you going to get the examples? Okay, take time to go to these hospitals. Pretend that you're maybe a poor person and you go there and you see. Some of these doctors will chase you away because you're poor. And you'll see them, the pot-bellied guys just go through the lines. But the ones that are malnourished will always starve. They have gone to hospitals without any food. They will come back at maybe 5. Somebody who has gone at 8 comes back at 5. Well, others who are packed there will just go a few minutes and they're done because they put in something. It's very wrong. Okay, so get that experience. Ladies and gentlemen, you have much word. There is no way you're going to gamble with general paper. General paper is about your current affairs, what happens in your community. So if you want to know what happens, please try as much as you can to get involved in this. If we're talking about those, of course, there are some organizations that are set up. Some organizations that are set up, but they just dupe people. I'm not saying every organization is like that, but there's a certain lady, you know, reading these books of literature have helped me analyze what happens in my society. There's a certain lady that I used to see sometime, I think before COVID or during COVID. I think the lady passed on. I was told she passed on. But this lady used to move with kids, not students. She used to move with some kids who I think they had cancer, because some of them would have swollen cheeks, swollen eyes, swollen faces, swollen stomachs, and the like. Okay, and so people would always sympathizers would always give them money. But to me, I think someone would take advantage of such. And some people, I'm not saying that lady in particular, but I'm seeing some people taking advantage of such people to make money. Case in point are these kids on streets in Kampala, what we call street kids or the Karamojong. An investigation was made one time, I think, by NBS, and they found out that, either NBS or NTV, found out that these kids are actually somebody's business. Somebody goes to Karamoja and picks these girls, young girls, and bring them to the city just to make money. So you find someone there begging. At the end of the day, there is someone, they have to report somewhere, and they give their proceeds. I don't know if I can also call them proceeds. Their daily income, they give them to somebody, and then after that, the person will give a share. Just like the prostitutes that we have around Mukono, around Kampala, it's somebody's business. Somebody collects women and tells them, you know what, go to Speak Road, Speak Avenue, Nile Avenue. Go to Nile Avenue and stand there. At the end of it all, they report to someone, then the person pays them. It's bad. That's very, very bad. And at times they even cheat them. So such things. So when you have presented your work like that, present all the different forms. Maybe I can share a document here and see if we can look at an example. Let me see which one is this. Okay. Let's look at this. To account, by the way, these keywords are also very important. I don't know if you're seeing that. I think you're seeing it. Account for the rampant land evictions or rampant evictions in Uganda. Before we go there, do I have the one for corruption? Sure. Okay, very good. Yeah. Corruption. To what extent that corruption? Does corruption explain to the poor wealth? Oh, here I talked about poor wealth distribution in Africa. Now, here our parameter is Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, that is very important. The debaters always talk about parameters, and some of us don't want to go for debates or even attending. We had a public debate last time, and some of you feared. So the parameter here is Africa. If they say the parameter is Uganda, limit it to Uganda. If the parameter is Kampala, limit it to Kampala. Okay, but here, to what extent does corruption explain the poor wealth distribution in Africa? That's an example. Then I said that corruption refers to the abuse or the misuse of one's position for personal gain. In most cases, it is for personal gain. Then, okay, my acquisition of land, okay. So we shall go back to that question. So personal gain. Then, for instance, demanding for bribes to award a tender. A tender is, for example, if you want to, when you get out of school, some of you, by the senior sixes that I taught last year, I loved that class because they felt more attached to me that they would even give me they would share with me their businesses and their business proposals, some of them, and I would guide them. It's very important for you to be focused to that level. Okay, so now a tender, you can go, because normally government institutions have award tenders. For example, it can be a cleaning tender. You see, the most paying job, let me tell you one thing. These guys who collect waste, solid waste, those guys earn a lot of money. The guys who collect cess, who do cess, toilets, latrines, and all the things, they make a lot of money. But some of us don't want it because it stinks. Okay, but that is what we call tender. It can be sweeping. For example, if you have like these people who sweep around the school, that's a tender. Actually, even the nurses, it is tender. Somebody applied for that tender. If you look at hospitals, you can choose to get a tender of just sweeping. And then for you, employ people to go and sweep. You will not be the one, but you win the tender to go sweep. So you earn a lot of money out of that. Now you find that somebody goes, they have advertised for such, and then for you, you go and tell them, you know what, we are many bidders, we are about 10 of them, but for me, let me give you something. So, for instance, demanding for bribes for awards of tenders, or the person in office can say, you people are many who want this job, but I don't know why I've loved you, but at the end of it all, please, I'm going to give you this tender, but you are the one who knows what you're going to give me. But definitely somebody is saying you will give me money. So, appointing relatives, appointing relatives and friends in public offices. That is a form of bribery. Call it nepotism, bribery. Diverting entrusted funds. Earlier on, we saw it is embezzlement. You've been given funds, and for you divert it for your personal usage. So then I went on to say some of the prone countries, mention them in your, that is, ladies and gentlemen, that is an introduction. Some of the prone countries are Sudan, Chad, Comoros, South Africa, Eritrea. I mentioned them. Okay, researched. Then I went on to discuss what poor wealth distribution refers, and it refers to the widening gap between the poor and the rich. Those who have. Those who do not have. The haves and the have-nots. I don't know if you've watched that. Then I looked at corruption there. I started with bribery, that is soliciting for payments from businesses so that I quicken or access. Then mentioned that, earning advantages to the bribe takers and facilitate bribe givers against the majority. We mentioned that earlier on. Then we have what we call nepotism. Okay, that is employing your relatives. Cronism, employing your friends. Obi, Obi, I will employ, give you a job. Cronism. Then you have favoritism, you favor blah, blah, practice of partiality, awarding jobs and other advantages to friends, family members, e.g. Then, ladies and gentlemen, I gave an example there, Dos Santos, because now I am looking at, my parameter is Africa. I will not limit Uganda, otherwise you'll bore me. By the way, when we get to this, when we get back to examples, ladies and gentlemen, do not duplicate examples. Some of us duplicate. You talk about Agnes Nanduto in the first example. You go to Agnes Nanduto in the second example. You go to Agnes Nanduto in the third paragraph. No. Or you talk about Noop, first paragraph. Go Noop, second paragraph. They beat up Noop supporters. No. Then you mention Chagulanyi. Still is under Noop. That is duplicating examples. That will not earn you 3 marks. You get 2 marks. Okay, so have wide examples. Now, when you go back there, my examples, as I told you, my parameter was Africa. So that's why I mentioned Dos Santos from Angola, where he ended up employing his relatives. I was told of a certain school in around in Tinda, I stay in Tinda for some, at least I go there for some things. But when you look at in Tinda, there is a certain school that was called, I think I should mention the name, Tinda View. I do not think it is still, I don't know whether it is still in existence, but I was told that right from the gate man to the head teacher, they were from the same region, same district, and same tribe. Of course, the reason as why the school collapsed is because of that. Even God, when God saw that these people here are becoming more intelligent, because they are speaking one language. What should I do? God said, okay, let me confuse them. Let me make them speak in tongues. So they could not communicate. Then also, of course, our reigning president there, we can't mention him directly, so we say it is alleged that Mr. Museveni's relatives in Uganda are in most offices. Yeah, there is a time these guys of which Roger Simba, those Bizonto guys. Are they called Bizonto? I think so. Bizonto guys one time told us, okay, they arrested them. And the reason as to why they arrested them is because they were listing the names of important people in our society and who hold important positions in government. So as they were still listing the people donned in green camouflage and red barretts went and of course surrounded the whole Bukoto office and arrested them. But they said, you people are arresting us, but for us, we are trying to educate our Ugandans. We are telling them which people own, the leaders in these different offices. That's what they said. But for us, we're just educating our Ugandan citizens that, so-and-so is the leader of this. So-and-so, Alan Kajina is in charge of this. But for them, they said that these people are actually trying to say that it is only one region that is owning most of the government offices. Okay, so, and then, or trusted colleagues, hence limiting others' wealth. When you employ, for example, when you employ only your relatives or you employ the people of a particular region, it means the other region will not be employed. Sincerely speaking, I'm also looking for a way of joining maybe URA or joining State House, because I hear there's a lot of money there. But I'm poor because I've not joined there. So in case you are a relative there, you can also connect me so that I also enjoy the billions of shillings. I was told that, and you have to know this, there is somebody who was in URA, and that person was earning 400 ma a week. 400 million shillings. He was not earning, he was paying himself 400 million shillings per week. Okay. When society complained, they removed the person and put him in another office, but did not do what? Imprison him. So that is our Uganda. Our Uganda, of course, we shall discuss that later on. This is social media. Anyone can record this. So we have that. Then I went on to talk about embezzlement. If you don't want to mention the word embezzlement, you can say outright theft. If you don't want to mention the word theft, you can mention the word fraud or fraud. Okay? It all means, or they all mean embezzlement. Fraud, you've heard of fraud. Fraud is basically stealing money. Stealing money. I've told you, time is always not enough, and the teacher is here. So thieves. People steal, or you overfraud, or you overprice money. Okay? You're given money, you say, by the way, I was told that I think every 3 kilometers of a road is it? In Uganda, they are accounted for 3 billion shillings. I don't know how that is possible. No, 9 billions. But it's supposed to be, I think, roughly maybe less than that. But somebody says 9 billions. That is overpricing. I will play for you that video later on. Okay? Where our Ugandan, God should forgive us. Okay? So you price kilometers, 3 kilometers at 9. Do you know what 9 billions is? 9 billions is 9,000 millions. Oh, Jesus. That money is uncounted or uncountable. 9,000 millions. Okay, and you are saying that, you know what, that only constructs 3 kilometers of a road, sincerely speaking. And yet I was told that 3 kilometers, it's about, I think, 1 billion or 3 billions, around there. So where does the other extra 6 billion shillings go? To the person somewhere seated in a certain office. The only mistake that that person made is to own that office. But the money will have to get that person in that office. Okay, so I think you see that. Now you find that such things limit development in other areas. And then kickbacks. Okay, I'm giving you this, but make sure I get some commission out of it. Those are kickbacks. It's very, very dangerous. Okay, so I think that is how you're supposed to, in case you want this document or when you come back, I can share later on. Then influencing peddling, whereby the politicians, okay, or political corruption in influencing key government policies or projects such as the illicit capture of the diamond pipeline in Angola. You see, I talk about my parameter is international. Okay. But when you come back here, you find that some politicians sabotage government projects or sabotage some projects and the like, you see, and so on and so forth. So you find that there are certain areas that may not really develop because somebody has sabotaged. Okay. And because I'm sabotaging a certain program or I'm capturing, sabotaging is capturing certain program, those people around that area that that program is meant for might not really benefit out of it. You can give examples of these schemes that the government has come up with. You have, I think the most current one is PDM, Parish Development Model. So you find people, they release money, but some people assume that is their program. Okay, so as I told you, the teacher is just right around the corner, and any time is coming around in a few. Okay, so basically, you are supposed to mention, you're supposed to be mature in your presentation. If you're not mature, ladies and gentlemen, we shall not give you the marks. And by the way, as I plan to go, our pass mark in Seta High for GP is 65. Is it 65 or 60? Around there. Okay, so if you fail to do this, you have failed. And let me tell you one thing, in your NEB, if you get, let me use the old curriculum, you get 19 and you fail GP, because GP is 1 point to get 20. By law, you're supposed to receipt senior 6. And of course, according to your curriculum, you go back to senior 5. So you waste all the other. Make sure you pass GP. If you don't pass GP, you're gone. You're dead. I'm telling you this. So make sure you do that. But anyway, we shall continue with our presentations. Let me allow the teacher of biology take you through. Then in case you want this document, I'll organize and share. But you put in a group, in the WhatsApp group, that you want the presentation. Then for me, I'll share. I think, do we have any question? Let me check. Do you have any? No, yes, there is no question. Okay, so when you're done with that presentation, some questions require general conclusion, while others do not require general conclusion. And we don't award any mark for a conclusion. So don't say, oh, I forgot to conclude. Oh my God, I'm going to miss out. No. If you don't conclude, well and good. If you conclude, well and good. Okay, so let me just swap with the teacher so that he comes and does the biology that he has prepared for you. Make sure you collect, inform those people who don't offer GP to come and do biology. There are some people who have run out because they don't offer GP. So call them to come and do biology. Shalom.
Good afternoon. The other thing is visible on the screen. They are sharing it. Okay, good afternoon from fives. Is there somebody? Okay, on your screen there's a syllabus book that is projecting what you're supposed to know by the end of the topic. Till we're on chapter D, number one, we are going to look at number one, but number one is basically looking at tissues. Number one of your day package is mainly looking at tissues and any cell organelles. So when you read that syllabus book there, they are saying that learners should be able to analyze the plant tissues which they are put there. However, animal tissues are also there, like the epithelial tissue, the cardiac, areolar, fibrous, and skeletal tissues. And this one enables us to assess the roles of in physiological processes and then the disease diagnosis. So that's what we want to see, that when these tissues are damaged, what problems can result from the damage of these tissues. By understanding the function of the tissues that they have talked about. For example, you're having the skin, if the function of the skin. So that's in the skin, we have the other organs that are tissues being damaged, tissues or structures being damaged. The skin, then the structure that we are affected. I have the rough, the rough. I have the rough endoplasmic reticulum. Rough endoplasmic reticulum. I have the lysosome, lysosomes. Then I have the mitochondria. So we should be knowing the function. First of all, a student should be knowing what the skin is made up of, what makes up the skin. And then finally, a student tells us the function of this function and then the adaptation to function. So when you look at the skin is, you cover the skin when you're covering the epithelial tissues. And the skin specifically, is an example of stratified epithelial tissues. And specifically stratified squamous tissues. And anything which is concerned with the protection, any epithelial tissue that is concerned with protection is stratified.